Here's a pattern that abusive people use to demean and baffle those around them. This is a language pattern, so it doesn't show up with physical scars, yet it's no less damaging. Today I want to elaborate so that once you know these patterns, you can choose how you respond and have less turmoil in your life. Hi, I'm Sophie from Wellbeing. In this series, I'm talking about emotional abuse and its effects. This form of abuse is insidious and harmful, physiologically, emotionally, and in the long term, psychologically. If you like what I have to say, please subscribe and share so that we can all keep helping each other. Abusive personalities are not always obvious. In fact, many people find that those with narcissistic traits are in fact quite charming and charismatic. They're known to be the life of the party, have high ranking positions, and can be quite generous. There are those that have more vulnerable narcissistic traits that are often quieter and more covert in their tactics, and they tend to fly under the radar of the average person. In fact, it really seems that if you don't know what to look for, it's easy to miss the signs until it is far too late, until you are hooked in a toxic work or a toxic romantic relationship. It's these relationships that can last for many, many years because of their nature and the insidiousness or slowness with which they apparently sneak up. However, when we look back, we can indeed see that there were absolutely red flags. These signs were masked by other traits, supposedly generosity and thoughts that were met and thoughts that we had met our soulmate or our perfect partner. You see, for starters, those that the narcissist is attracted to are usually quite empathic and successful in their own right, and that's the appeal that the victim has or the person has to the narcissist. And occasionally they will meet with a like-minded person, but this is a totally different relationship. Today I want to help you determine how you are feeling and how you have those cognitive dissonant sensations and that they are actually genuine, and so that when you experience them, it'll be more understandable to you. By nature, people partnered with narcissists are forgiving, often self-doubting, people pleasers, and potentially vulnerable. They may have experienced childhood trauma or abuse, and this kind of filters what they're experiencing now and makes them doubt their current situation. As a result, they often people please, and since self-doubt is a common go-to, they apologise for thinking that they did the wrong thing, said the wrong thing, or made a mistake. They will recognise that they're human, and as such, they will indeed occasionally do the wrong thing. Alternately, others have come into these relationships that have had a beautiful childhood, had nothing wrong, no toxicity, and as a result, they don't see or sense what the narcissist is doing. The difference with a narcissist is that they don't think they do the wrong thing. They're actually very quick to point out the flaws in those around them as a sort of self-vindication of how they feel. So one of the worst and first language traits you're going to notice is blame. By blaming you, they're not at fault, or so not nearly as much as you are. As a person that can self-appraise, you will indeed internally think about how you can contribute and probably apologise. And as soon as you apologise, the narcissist knows that they were right, and this potentially becomes a feedback mechanism that they can use over and over. Blame, find fault, expect contrition, and so on. And this can then be followed by them being super nice, the victim feeling relieved, and trauma bonding occurring, which is what we will talk about at another time. Another way that these abusive people use language is to create cognitive dissonance, to distort the actual facts. They'll find one element of truth and somehow distort it so that a different point becomes the focus when the actual issue is not being addressed. I have literally had conversations with someone about a bill not being paid, being extremely overdue, and penalties being added when it could have been addressed and paid well before this. However, the conversation somehow turned on its head, and before I knew it, we were discussing how the only focus I have on life is money and that I clearly didn't care about him. And this was so upsetting, and it took me by surprise that all thought and intent went away from the actual problem of why wasn't the bill being paid and why do we need to be actually paying unnecessary penalties. Still, other people might delete information. That is, they leave out critical points. This is, I'm sure you've heard, lying by omission. Now, we've all probably been guilty of this at one time or another when we don't want to hurt another person's feelings. This is not the same as deleting information so that you can get away with things that you know are not right. For example, so you might be asked, why were you late? Well, work is always busy, you know that. This has had a lot of information deleted and yet not enough facts around it. So that if you question it, you probably don't come up with enough information to support what you're actually concerned about. And as the narcissist turns it around, it comes across that as an accusation or a blame, that you don't trust them, that you're too sensitive and so forth. A more honest way would have been to let you know in advance and then explain how this occurred and how it would not keep occurring. And if indeed it did keep occurring, that's a whole other pattern at play. Generalizing is another language pattern that abusers can use. Put this with blame and you're left with your head spinning. Comments like, you always, every time you. See how instantly you are the problem, and indeed said circumstances may have happened and you've probably gotten upset, overspent, been late, whatever it is. But when you call them out on their repeated behaviour, they make a generalisation that has some truth to it. So you feel that they must be right, but you end up questioning yourself, and the real issue is avoided again by them, and you're just left feeling really crappy. Sometimes a narcissist will do things like catastrophize and make you frightened for the future. For example, if I don't work this hard, we'll be living on the streets. No one else would put up with you and your behaviour. This is demeaning and all-out destructive language, and it plays into our fears and will then cause you to try to alter your behaviour and definitely to stop you questioning theirs. Those quieter, more vulnerable abusers, though, might equally be as damaging narcissists, but they play more of a victim role, and they appeal to your empathic side so that you feel guilty and possibly even sad for them. They'll point out how bad things are, and it's because of you that your relationship is suffering, as they're doing so very much to keep you happy or to help out. Yet this is not backed up by actual actions or behaviours. They are in fact absent, seemingly forgetful and poorly organised, but usually to the detriment of their children or significant others. This victim mentality can be followed up with punishing silent treatment or stonewalling, and make no mistake, this is abusive. A healthy person would try to talk it through or to seek help. Imagine the difference if they took accountability for their behaviour. I hope you know now that some of the language patterns that an abuser can use, so that you can hear them, and instead of reacting as your gut does a total flip-flop, you can now instead cognitively recognise them and choose how you respond. By doing so, your behaviour then is your choice, and if they use any of the above strategies, you will know what the truth is. If you like what I have to say, please subscribe and share, as you never know who is suffering. Until next time, I'm sending you much love.